guys, another week has passed. Happy Friday. Today we're going to be continuing on with our analyzing arguments segment, and today I'm going to be talking about the essay structure you can adopt for 3 articles and or including images. So if you haven't watched any of my previous videos in this particular segment, there is part 1, part 2, part 3 linked down in the description box below. So make sure you go ahead and watch that. But otherwise, if you're just watching this just for general information about analyzing argument essay structure for 3 articles, then let's dive into it now. So there are 3 different essay structures that you can adopt. The first one we'll go into is the block structure, and I'm sure this is not the first time you've heard about these structures on this channel, but let's go through them once again just so that you have a better understanding, especially as you go into your SAC. So for a block structure, basically at the top and end of each essay is always the same. You've got your introduction and your conclusion. So what's within the introduction and conclusion, I will actually go into detail in my next few videos. So keep your eye out on that. This is more just the general skeleton of your essay. So with a block, essentially it's things done in chunks. So you've got Article 1 in one block, Article 2 in one block, and Article 3 in one block. So what do I mean by blocks? It's really just sections of your essays as opposed to, one paragraph on Article 1, one paragraph on Article 2, and one on paragraph 3. Of course, you can do it like that, where you're focusing one paragraph for each, but if you wanted to break them up and say, for your Article 1 section, you've got 2 paragraphs, and then you move into Article 2, and you might have another 2 paragraphs on that one, and then you move into Article 3, which might only have 1 paragraph. That is okay too. In regards to proportions, it doesn't always have to be equal. For me, what I try to do is I have a look at the articles themselves, and then I gauge to myself, okay, this first article has taken up the entire first page, whereas Article 2 and Image 3 only make up half of the second page, which kind of tells me that I should be spending more time going into Article 1 because there's more to discuss, and then a little bit of time on each, the second and the third. So I'll show you what I mean. In the 2016 VCA exam that we've been going through, for the first article, hopefully you guys can see that. I'm not sure. If not, then I'll just plug it up on the screen. That makes up one entire page. So there's lots for you to go through. Whereas with the second and third, they only make up, a smaller proportion of the complete picture. So yeah, that's just some thoughts for you. At the end of a block, you compare all 3. So there are pros and cons with the block version. The positive is that it's really easy to get the hang of, and logically and structurally, it's easy for you to organize. But the thing that sucks about the block method is that you're leaving your comparison all the way until the end. And what happens when you leave everything to the end? You run the risk of potentially not finishing your essay and therefore not actually completing that criteria of comparing the 3 articles. And so I think that kind of sucks because then you're under a lot of pressure to really make sure that you finish the essay in time. So pros and cons of that, it's up to you to weigh out the benefits versus the risks. Moving on to the bridge version. So again, top and tail, introduction and conclusion remain the same, but it's inside the middle, which is what makes the difference. So with the bridge, you're essentially starting with Article 1, which makes up the first section of your essay. Then you move into Article 2. Once you move into Article 2, you start to make comparisons back to Article 1. So whether that is in a paragraph of its own, so that way you can form a bridge. So you can do the bridge in a couple of ways. You could either have Article 2 and then just make comparisons back to Article 1, or you could only have one paragraph where you're comparing Article 1 and 2 and then completely move into Article 2 on its own. So either way, I guess the second version, you can clearly see the bridge there, but they're both pretty much the same in terms of what they're doing, just instead you're splitting up the paragraphs. Then you move into Article 3, and once you move into Article 3, you make comparisons back to Article 1 and Article 2. And in a similar sense to what I was saying before, you could either incorporate this all into one body paragraph, or you could split it. So you could have a section where a paragraph where you're comparing article 1, 2, and 3, and then completely move into article 3. A pro with this is that you're comparing as you go. And so there's not this time pressure and this added stress that you need to finish in time. Otherwise, you just won't manage to talk about any comparison points. Even if you do run out of time, at least you've been comparing throughout your essay. So at least some of that criteria is ticked off. The con with this is it starts to get a little bit more challenging because you really have to organize exactly what you're planning to say in each body paragraph, where you're going to make your comparisons. It's really important that you plan beforehand and have a solid idea of exactly what goes where, so you don't screw up and make mistakes throughout your essay. And what do I mean by screwing up? I mean things like forgetting to make one comparison here, or realizing that you've already talked about the tone for article 1 when you actually wanted to save it for later and discuss the tone and compare all 3 articles. The last one is an integrated structure. So this is the most challenging of all 3, but it's relatively straightforward in explanation. In each paragraph, you're basically comparing all 3 articles at the same time. So of course, the pro to this is, you're comparing and you are going to compare hard, and that's really impressive. But the con to that is that it's super challenging. Like, you really got to know what you're doing. Again, you have to organize and plan before you start writing. But I think for a lot of people, people don't really find that many comparison points to talk about. So it can be challenging in itself just to complete those paragraphs. These are 3 essay structures. I want to give you a couple of pointers to take away. The first one being that you don't need equal proportions, which we discussed earlier, of each article. Really have a look at how much space each article takes up, and then spend your time on your essay relative to how much there is in the actual exam or your SAT. The second thing is to find similarities and differences. So of course, similarities can be quite easy to find. Differences, you have to be a little bit more innovative in your thinking. So a difference could be the target audience. And that's something that's not so obvious, but once you find that, you've got so much you can talk about. The third thing is find differences within similarities. So what I mean by this is a similarity because it's not exactly the same. That's why it's a similarity. I hope that makes sense. So what you can do is find how it's similar, but then look deeper and find how these 2 things you're comparing are different. For example, 2 people might use their credentials, right? So they might say, I am the mayor, whereas the other person says, I'm in charge of, local planning. So whilst you can look at the 2 of them being like, they both use the credentials, talk about how it's different. So being a mayor, what does that mean? And how does that impact people differently to a local planner? You could talk about how they both support their ideas with evidence. Maybe though, one person supports it with statistics, whereas the other person supports it with their credentials, like whoever they are. Maybe they're a doctor, or maybe they are an expert in this field for more than 10 years. So that's a really good place to really open up your ideas and find more comparative points, particularly if you struggle to find things to talk about. So that's it from me this week. Next week, we are going to look into the introduction and how to structure that. The week after will be body paragraphs, and the week after will be our last video in this segment, which is the conclusion. So I hope this has all been helpful for you guys so far. If it has been, I wanted to let you guys know that we do private tutoring at Lisa's Study Guides. I have a team of amazing tutors who've achieved all study scores of 40 and above in English, or any English other subject that you need, EAL, literature, English language, and we're all English nerds. We love it. Our team is really special because of the fact that we really do specialize in English. So this type of information that you're getting now is the type of information that you'd be getting with your tutor. I'm so proud to say that we've had amazing reviews left behind for us on Google, and people have really recommended us for word of mouth. That's where most of our students come from, and you know, teachers and schools are using our resources. So I think that really says something about the type of advice that we give. So thank you so much, guys. If you do want to check out private tutoring, then I'll just link it up above for you, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.